I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see they're meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America.
After the U.S. President Donald Trump placed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, China quickly responded by imposing its own 125% taxes on American goods. Now the two countries are locked in a tariff war. But what really makes this interesting and scary is the fact that both countries are hurting badly from these tariffs, but both are refusing to back down. But in this case, it is President Trump who is feeling the full pressure. While it is hard for him to admit it, so he does not look weak. After all, he was the one that started the tariff war. The United States is in desperate need of the Chinese-made goods, and there could be a critical economic shutdown if things are not restored back to normal. Meanwhile, the Chinese President Xi Jinping is in talks with Vietnam and urging them to restrict the export of critical rare earth metals to the U.S. If Vietnam cooperates with China, the United States may be forced to accept defeat to China. Right now, things are not looking good for the U.S. Will Trump be forced to swallow his pride and call the Chinese president? Before we get deep into the video, hit the subscribe button to ensure you get the best updates and analysis. Though Trump projects confidence in public, behind the scenes, signs of panic are starting to show. Major financial markets are taking a hit. Within just 2 weeks, the Dow Jones plunged 2,200 points. The Nasdaq and S&P 500 are also swinging wildly. Across industries, companies are struggling. Electronics manufacturers reliant on Chinese parts are facing serious disruptions. Prices for smartphones, laptops, and computer chips have already surged. Even corporate giants like Apple and Nvidia are seeing shrinking profits. Walmart has issued a stark warning. American families could pay $78 billion more in just the next few months. The Walmart case, in particular, helps us understand the pressure American retailers are facing. In early 2025, the world's largest retailer was thrust into controversy after it asked its Chinese suppliers to lower prices by up to 10% per new tariff round. But suppliers pushed back. Operating on already razor-thin margins thanks to Walmart's aggressive pricing model, most said even a 2% cut would lead to losses. Many began exploring sourcing options in countries like Vietnam just to stay afloat. The situation escalated quickly. Chinese authorities, including the Ministry of Commerce, summoned Walmart executives, warning that their pricing demands risked undermining fair competition and global trade stability. It's not just shoppers who are suffering. Small business owners, especially in farming communities across states like Iowa and Nebraska, are facing big losses. These are the same people who voted for Trump. But now, they're being crushed by this trade fight. Farmers who used to sell soybeans and corn to China have lost their biggest buyer. According to the American Farm Bureau, U.S. soybean exports to China have dropped by 63% this year. Over 400 farming groups in Iowa alone are close to shutting down. Many say that the government support they're receiving isn't nearly enough. As one farmer in Des Moines said, "We were promised better deals, but all we got were more taxes." Public sentiment reflects growing unease with the economic direction under Trump's leadership. A CNN/SSRS poll conducted in March 2025 revealed that 61% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of tariffs, the first time a majority expressed dissatisfaction with his economic strategy. This disapproval extends across various demographics, including young adults, non-college educated individuals, and those earning less than $50,000 annually, groups that were instrumental in Trump's electoral success. A separate Harris poll found 72% of Americans are now worried about the impact of tariffs, up sharply from earlier in the year. Now let's talk about China's advantage in this situation. The US used its biggest weapon, tariffs, and now doesn't have many tools left. But China has many options. One of the most powerful is its currency, the yuan. The Chinese government has allowed the yuan to lose value, which is called devaluation. This means Chinese goods are now cheaper to buy in other countries, even with US tariffs in place. It's like giving their exporters a discount. The US, on the other hand, can't easily weaken its currency without risking inflation and other problems. China is also using government money to support its companies. Reports show that since February 2025, China has quietly given funds to help industries like steel, solar energy, computer chips, and electric cars. These companies are being kept alive by the government, not because they're making money, but because China sees them as important to its future. President Xi Jinping is focused on surviving this trade war, not necessarily winning it right away. And thanks to his control over China's economy, media, and politics, he has the tools to do just that. In China, even though some people are losing jobs, especially in cities that export a lot, Xi's government is working hard to keep things under control. Unemployment in cities like Guangdong and Zhejiang has gone up, but the Chinese media is calling this trade war a national struggle, meaning everyone has to show support for the government. The government has launched a huge campaign, telling people that they must stay strong and united while facing a greedy and aggressive America. This message is helping to keep people calm, even during hard times. In contrast, President Trump is under growing pressure. In the US, leaders have to worry about voters, news media, campaign donors, and elections. Right now, all of them are warning Trump that this trade war is going too far. Some of his biggest supporters, like billionaire investor Bill Ackman, have publicly said the tariffs are hurting ordinary Americans. Even the National Association of Manufacturers, a group that used to strongly support Trump, has said that these new tariffs could damage American factories and businesses in the long run. As a result, Trump has already started backing down. On April 9th, his team said that some important items would no longer face the new tariffs. These include products like computer chips, phone batteries, and other electronics. This was a big shift, especially since Trump had just said that the US needed to break free from China completely. Many experts believe this is a sign that the White House is secretly looking for a way out of this mess. Some reports say Trump has already reached out to China through backdoor talks in places like Geneva and Singapore, basically asking China to restart negotiations. In a short press meeting, Trump indicated that he was always open to talk. But China hasn't answered. Xi Jinping doesn't have an election to worry about. He doesn't have campaign donors breathing down his neck. What he has is time, and he's using it well. While both economies are suffering, China's system lets it move faster and adapt better than the US can. That makes this trade war feel like a game of endurance, not power. And here lies the most alarming truth. The United States may already be losing the ability to negotiate. Every week this trade war continues, the damage gets worse. Factories are closing, prices are rising, and global trade is getting messier. Investors are losing faith in the American market. Families are cutting back on spending. Businesses are holding off on hiring. And all the while, Trump is waiting for a phone call from China that may never come. The plan to pressure China into a deal by hurting its economy has not worked. Instead, the United States is stuck, still deeply connected to Chinese factories and supply chains, but now paying more for everything. The strategy was supposed to make America stronger. Instead, it has exposed how much the US still depends on China. Trump wanted to look tough, but now he's stuck hoping China will give him a way out. The American people are growing angry. Business leaders are speaking out. And Trump's political future is on the line.
And the president, he does expect to have conversations with President Xi, but that is between them.
But while tariffs dominate the headlines, a more dangerous weapon is being quietly deployed. Rare earth elements, despite their name, are not truly rare in the Earth's crust, but they are incredibly difficult to mine, separate, and refine. The process is dirty, toxic, and extremely expensive. For decades, Western nations outsourced these unpleasant tasks to China, which built a near monopoly. As of 2024, China controlled 90% of the global rare earth refining capacity and over 69% of the mining output. It was not always this way. The US once led the world in rare earths until the 1990s, when environmental regulations, low labor costs in China, and aggressive subsidies allowed Beijing to corner the market. China is particularly restricting the export of heavy rare earth metals used in missiles, radar systems, satellite communications, and electric motors. These aren't optional parts. They're irreplaceable. One example is neodymium, used in magnets for high-performance engines. Another is dysprosium, vital in heat-resistant alloys for jet engines. Without them, the Pentagon cannot build modern aircraft or missile systems. Without them, clean energy technologies like wind turbines and electric vehicles grind to a halt. Here lies the core of the crisis. The U.S. economy is still deeply dependent on these Chinese-supplied materials. According to 2023 U.S. Geological Survey data, over 74% of America's rare earth imports came from China. The Defense Department has labeled this dependence a strategic vulnerability. In a world of intensifying U.S.-China rivalry, this is akin to handing your rival the keys to your own military factory. One of the few American companies in this space, MP Materials, saw its stock soar by over 40% in a week. MP runs the only rare earth mine in the U.S., located at Mountain Pass, California. But here's the troubling twist. Until recently, it shipped its raw materials to China for processing. Even with billions in funding, it could take years before America builds a self-sufficient rare earth supply chain. The equipment is costly, the expertise is limited, and the environmental opposition is already mounting. But time is not a luxury Washington currently enjoys. The urgency has never been higher. That brings us to the next flashpoint in this resource war: Vietnam. Vietnam is not the first country that comes to mind when you think of global power struggles. But it might soon become one of the most critical countries in the fight to secure rare earths. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, Vietnam has the second largest rare earth reserves in the world, estimated at over 22 million metric tons. This puts it just behind China. If fully tapped, Vietnam could help rescue Western nations from their current crisis. In response to China's restrictions, Vietnam announced an aggressive plan to scale up its rare earth oxide (REO) production to 60,000 tons annually by 2030. This would make Vietnam one of the world's top producers. But here lies the paradox. Vietnam has the raw materials, but not yet the industrial machinery or investment required to exploit them at scale. The challenges are steep. Much of Vietnam's mining infrastructure is outdated and underfunded. The industry lacks the advanced separation and refining technologies necessary to produce high-purity materials. Additionally, like in China, Vietnam's deposits are often located in environmentally sensitive areas, and improper development could trigger severe backlash from both citizens and environmental groups. Unfortunately, Vietnam has also become entangled in Trump's escalating tariff war, which may inadvertently drive a wedge between Hanoi and Washington. This presents a strategic opening for Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is currently on a diplomatic tour across Southeast Asia. His objective is clear: to bolster China's regional alliances and forge a united front against the United States. With tensions rising, Xi is working to persuade countries like Vietnam to distance themselves from American trade partnerships, framing the U.S. as an unreliable and economically hostile partner. If Xi's efforts bear fruit, the consequences could be devastating for the U.S. In the race for rare earth dominance, Vietnam, one of the few countries with large, untapped reserves, could be persuaded to limit or even halt exports to America. That would cripple U.S. defense supply chains, slow clean energy expansion, and hand China an even greater geopolitical edge. The irony is sharp. The very region the U.S. once tried to contain is now becoming its lifeline, and possibly its undoing. Will Vietnam become America's last hope, or China's unexpected ally? The stakes have never been higher, and the world is watching. If you found this analysis valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this video. The next chapter of this conflict is already unfolding, and you won't want to miss what happens next.